Venus going retrograde just might be one of the big events of 2025 for a lot of us out there, but you can't take it at face value. That is because whatever happens during a retrograde, well, it tends to be seen differently once it is that Venus goes direct. Now, that direct is going to happen in the middle of April, and Venus is going to come back to where she is at the end of this week on March 1st, all the way in the middle of May. And at that time, we just might see developments that take place now very differently. It is now with Venus shifting directions that we feel that much more passion, that much more desire, that much more determination. And we can see that love is a force, a catalyst, if you will, of meaningful transformation in our lives and others. And this can be love in all kinds of forms. It is also prosperity. It is pleasure. It is joy. And yet all is not as it seems, because just when we think we have the answer, just when we think we know what love is, where we're going to get it, how we're going to get more of it, well, it is now that the game just might change. Realize we're going for something else, something deeper, something more meaningful, or perhaps something lighter. This is an energy of extremes after all, but it is just the beginning of a time that is going to be characterized by hard truths, but also facing our own disappointments as we move in the week ahead as part of this very powerful Venus retrograde that starts now. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of February 23rd, 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. And this is the last call to choose your tuition rate over at synchronicityuniversity.com to learn from these legendary astrologers, including me, Gemini Brett, URSULA STOCKDER, and these other incredible astrological minds. Links are below. Venus retrograde always asks us, do I love it? Is there love here? Is there love in this person, place, thing, or situation? And we gather experiences. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we know the answer, at least not just yet. And especially during the retrograde, we might think the answer is one thing and it ends up being something very different. But it's the question itself that lends itself to experiences that show us where the truth of our loves actually lie. Whether that's love for how we're living, the love that our heart is taking us, the love of the work that we do, the love of the people in our life. And of course, is there love here where it comes to romantic love? Can be a big guiding question as well. But once Venus officially does go direct, that's when the answers feel a whole lot more clear. And so with the retrograde, just when you think you know, you might realize you really don't. But it is a great time to be open to the answer, not necessarily find the answer to the question. Is there love here? That is the guiding question of this moment. Experiments in love are not likely to go as planned. Experiments with our looks also might not go as planned. Now, in some cases, it's not a big deal, right? Things like hair, I like to say it's just hair. But I also know the very devastating feeling of having hair that you feel this is not it. What did I do? How did this happen? I know that feeling. I have a lot of compassion for that feeling. And so, yeah, it tends to not be the best time to really go full on experimental with our looks. It is a great time to do a couple of things, which is affirm our own unique beauty, to play, to experiment in ways that aren't necessarily of great consequence. At the same time, though, you do want to be mindful of thinking that there's something that is the answer, whether that is a person, place, thing situation. But because it's Venus, she's not only the goddess of love, she's also about how we connect to our own unique beauty, how we express it, our style choices. She has to do with what's pleasurable, what's fun. And to a certain extent, she's also about prosperity, how we celebrate it, how we magnify it, how we enjoy our prosperity as well. And what we feel is the way, is so sure, and this is what we've got to do, ends up maybe not being as satisfying, and certainly doesn't satisfy once it is that the official direct does take place. And along the way, it's going to be a bit of an adventure at times, I will say, because we're going to have these huge moments that are stark realities and facing our own disappointments with ongoing connections to Saturn, to Neptune. But in the midst of all of that, we get these harmonious connections with Uranus and with Pluto. And that gives us insights into truth that ends up being consequential. But what we're going to do about it, where it takes us, that is just not going to be clear until the direct in the middle of April takes place. Now, it will be whatever took place for us at the very end of January and the beginning of February. That was when we had Venus first step into shadow with the retrograde. She's walking over the same path now. If it is that something brand new is coming up in the context of love or beauty or money, just know you might see it differently once we navigate past the middle of spring. However, if it is that we have something ongoing or something feels like it connects to what was taking place for us all the way back to the end of January and beginning of February, well, this can represent one of those time frames that invites us to look more deeply and to actually understand from a heart perspective, knowing that we don't have all the answers. But some decisions are more consequential than others. And where it comes to the types of things that you would like to last a really long time, like cosmetic procedures or tattoos, that's where more caution is needed. So easily changeable things, yeah, have fun with it, experiment with it. But if it's something that you hope will have more permanent outcomes, like cosmetic procedures, certain cosmetic procedures, tattoos, things like that, that you feel help magnify your sense of your unique beauty, that's where you do want to be careful with this, because it just ends up looking really different to you, whether it's your own motivation or the outcomes. You just see it so differently once it is that Venus officially does go direct as we navigate to the middle of April and beyond. And so it is a massively important journey. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I've seen in my own life. I remember I went through this phase many years ago. I was wearing all black all the time, and Venus went retro, and I just felt like I needed color. And I remember buying this full-on yellow outfit, and the sweater was like this fuzzy sweater. And so I literally looked like a big baby chicken is really what I looked like. It was like, you know, those little chicks. But of course it was me. And I loved that sweater at the time. I wore it a bunch of times. And then Venus went direct, and I looked at that sweater and I said, what was I thinking? What is that? And I just never, ever, ever wore that sweater again. I have had my share of not great haircuts. Some I've regretted more than others, especially when they took place with Venus retrograde. Now, I do say it's just hair. I had to learn that lesson that much more, I guess. But it's the more permanent stuff. Like I remember one tattoo I got. Normally, I'm pretty good with tattoos, and all of my tattoos I got as a very young lady. But that one tattoo I got during Venus retrograde, I mean, it just healed different. It took way longer. There were errors in it and things like that that I hadn't seen at the time. And that's why when I say, yeah, pace yourself and be yourself with Venus retrograde, you really do want to remember that. Now, where it comes to people that you might meet, romantically speaking, well, what you think it is and what it actually is could end up being really different. It could end up being better than you anticipated, or just different in a way that isn't necessarily that consequential, but sometimes it really is a big deal what truth is revealed. And I think that's more likely to be the case with the energy playing out now. Even though Venus retrograde is notorious for bringing past loves back into the mix in one way or another, sometimes just by happenstance, by synchronicity, sometimes with intentionality. Yeah, we might find ourselves reconnecting with people that we knew way back then. And it's especially likely with people that maybe we had passionate moments with. And that's because Venus is going retrograde in the sign of Aries. And this is love at first sight. This is lust at first sight as well. But as it is with love and especially lust with somebody that you really don't know, all of that is ultimately projection. It's not what's actually taking place, right? It's our own desire for love that we're projecting onto another person, and then Venus goes direct and we just see them very differently. And again, sometimes what we see gives us greater context or nuance and we feel that much more affection. Sometimes that's not the case, but whatever it is, I will say it's going to be honest. That's the thing. With Venus making ongoing connections with Saturn and with Neptune in the sky, meeting these planets in the sky, there is heightened hope and fantasy with Neptune, but also moments that are like a thud of a reality check with Saturn. But in the middle of it all, we also get harmonious connections with Pluto, bringing intensity and that much more passion and that much more feeling that whatever's happening in love, in money, in our appreciation of what it is that helps us to feel happy, helps us to feel joy, what pleasure is to us, it ends up having a transformative, if not sweeping, catalyst quality in our life at this time. Additionally, harmonious connections with Uranus can bring with them surprises that delight, new insights, new perceptions that end up being a game changer. Just when you think you know what you want, well, it might actually end up being something very different. So pace yourself and be yourself. This could be a lot of fun, but it is going to have its moments of intensity. Now, later this week, Venus retrograde seasons will be up in the superstar space and over at my website, nadiyashah.com. And stay tuned, of course, for the short horoscopes where I will go through Venus retrograde for each and every sign in the context of this week, and that's coming up shortly. 2 days before Venus officially goes retro, we do have a new moon happening in the sign of Pisces. And this new moon is an interesting one, partly because it is in Pisces, and Venus and the sign of Pisces have this very natural connection. Venus really loves being in the energy of Pisces. It magnifies this very romantic, hopeful vibration. And Venus is just one of the planets that's going to be moving in retro, back and forth between the sign of Pisces and the sign of Aries. In fact, when Venus went into shadow at the end of January, she was moving through the sign of Pisces at that time. So this new moon in Pisces, though, in and of itself is a rather interesting energy because it is speaking in a conversation of tension with Jupiter. And that makes it that much more an over-the-top vibration. It's overconfident. It is an energy that is about overdoing it, including our assumptions, including our illusions, our delusions, our fantasies, our hopes. But what we also get is a supremely harmonious connection with Mars with this energy as well. And that makes this energy that much more passionate. And to me, this sets the perfect stage for the fact that by the time we get to that new moon, Venus is already appearing to stand still in the sky. This is just before she officially goes retro, but she has reached her stationary as we get to that new moon. And so that natural affinity that Venus and Pisces have means that all these energies end up feeling that much more magnified, the hopeful, illusionary quality. But remember, love is not possible were it not for faith. Love is not possible, is it not for hope? It is because we are willing to see the best in people, because we are willing to believe in love, that it is able to be experienced by us that much more. And I think this new moon is going to be a reminder of that for a lot of us out there. Regardless of what disappointments might have been, this represents a moment of insight and a moment that helps us to tap into a more expanded sense of what love could be. The energy of Pisces speaks very profoundly to universal love. Romantic love, yes, but that sense of seeing love and being love in everyone and everything and everywhere, that is the great gift of Piscean energy. And with Venus going retro in a sign that is very much about self, it is about the individual. These energies might feel like they stand as contrast, but they really don't. You cannot have an individual by principle unless there is a collective, right? You cannot have a collective unless there are many individuals. They contribute to each other, they know each other and know themselves based on their relationship to each other. You know yourself as an individual because you know yourself in the context of the wider connections that you experience, and vice versa. And that part of the truth of what might be experienced is going to feel more on the surface now. Emotions are going to run very high because we do have a square of Jupiter to the new moon, a trine of Mars. And so that brings that much more adrenaline to this moment and that much more hype. And Venus in Aries magnifies the passion that much more. And so, look, at the very least, I do think some of us are going to cultivate some really interesting stories. That can be part of the fun of this time. And also understand that whatever needs to happen, let it, really let it, because if you let it, then you just might learn something. If you let it, you just might approach whatever's taking place with a spirit of some curiosity about why this might be playing out as part of a higher wisdom, because that higher wisdom is always at play. And it has the opportunity to be that much more obvious to us under the light of a planetary retrograde, and a rare one, because Venus only goes retro about once every year and a half or so. And so Venus going retrograde, it is somewhat of a rare occurrence, and it goes retrograde in different parts of our sky. And this is one of those moments where hope and fantasy, but also empowerment and determination, well, we see how they connect as part of the larger journey ahead. March is such a significant month, and if you are looking for insights, wisdom, or positive change in your life, this month is going to provide us with the experiences that just might point the way. I recently did an Ask Me Anything over on my Instagram. I might do one of those again soon. It was a lot of fun to see the questions that you guys had. And somebody asked me if I had to choose one word for 2025, what would it be? That was a great question. And the word that I chose was taste. It is a taste of what world we are going to dive into once we get into next year. Now, it is right now, with this Venus retrograde season, as we have Venus moving back and forth between Pisces and Aries, now retrograde back into Pisces eventually and direct, and moving into Aries while in shadow. This move is also a move that other big planets are going to make. Mercury will enter shadow at the very beginning of next week, and I'll talk about it then. This week, Mercury is quite active, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But we have later this month, as we get to the end of this month, that is when we're going to have Venus meeting Neptune at the very end of the energy of Pisces, just before Neptune steps into the energy of Aries. And to me, that's going to be an incredibly important moment of this month, if not this year, because that's when that illusionary energy of Venus is going to be that much more magnified. But it's almost like a hyper dose of Neptune before we see how different Neptune is experienced once it moves into fire sign Aries. And it's going to be here for a few months. Now, I did do horoscopes looking at some of these overriding themes, and I'll link to them below, the year ahead for your sign, the most important thing of the year ahead for your sign. And I did an overview in that as well. But having said that, yeah, it's a huge month. Neptune is going to change signs, dipping out of Pisces into Aries. But what we're also going to have is eclipse season. And our eclipse is happening not next week, but the week after. That's when eclipse season begins. I'll have a lot to talk about in the month ahead horoscopes for each and every sign. So be on the lookout for those here on my channel. But having said that, and all of that is to say, retrogrades themselves are powerfully karmic. You add a big, massive planet like Neptune changing signs that speaks to collective experiences, collective new chapters and big changes. You add a sense of eclipses that bring with them sudden truths and being plucked off of one path and put on a whole other path. I can't help but feel right now, as we are at the very beginning of March, and we get Venus retro, and the start of next week with Mercury entering shadow, well, all of this does suggest that we are in a time that is set to shift things for us, powerfully so. But just when we think we have the answer, we really might not. And that's because of the lack of clarity that comes with retrogrades. And right now, with Venus going retro, our own desires, our own heart, the things we love, the ways in which we want to hold on to love, or the ways in which we understand prosperity, responsibly or not, these are the things that start to magnify. Now, if you are born with Venus retrograde in your chart, well, it tends to kick off a really nice cycle, actually, because it is Venus retrograde that resonates with your natal Venus in your birth chart. And so it's like something within you feels like love and beauty and prosperity. It becomes that much more natural. Mercury is an active principle this week as well. We begin the week with Mercury speaking in supreme harmony with Mars. I love this. It is our minds being especially active, and it magnifies the feeling of synchronicity all around us. But it is as we navigate forward on Tuesday that Mercury will meet Saturn in the sky. And it becomes really important to be diligent with how it is that we speak to ourselves in particular, but also with each other. But this could be some tough news that needs to find us. It is whenever a planet meets Saturn in the sky, well, we get a reality check. And in this case, because Mercury has to do with the news that reaches us, what we're talking about to ourselves, to others, well, this is where the understanding, the need to have that appreciation of the consequence of words are that much more likely to find us. But as we navigate further, it is going to be on Thursday that Mercury will speak in harmony with Uranus. I love this energy, I have to say. This is brilliant. This is us being able to see and recognize and move our own thoughts and our words and the agreements that we're making with others in a direction of having an understanding of breakthroughs, wanting things to change in a positive sense, feeling like we have the power to make those changes is going to be very much at the forefront. Now, tough conversation midweek could lead to breakthrough understandings and all kinds of new beginnings for a possible future ahead. All might not be as it seems on the surface. We are on the precipice of a Mercury retrograde season that I'll talk about next week, but that doesn't mean this moment isn't valuable in and of itself for giving us those new perspectives that can change our understanding of what it is we want to do next. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. I'm going to say I love, well, look, Venus going retro, we don't often think of it as something to love, but it is because it's the goddess of love. But also, this has to do with celebrating your unique beauty. And that's the best way to appreciate a Venus retrograde season. It is about going within. It is about recognizing patterns within us and about being willing to see how it is that our own perception isn't always in alignment with the way things actually are in love, even in money, and in terms of our understanding of our own value beyond the superficial. Going within, going to a level that's more profound, by its very definition, means we are moving beyond the superficial. That's going to be part of the invitation now. But where we kind of get stuck in that superficial place, that's when we are setting ourselves up for a big reality check moment that's going to find us as we navigate a little bit later into this Venus retrograde season. In particular, April is filled with moments that feel like a thud of a reality check. So pace yourself and be yourself. You know, I like to say that, but ultimately it is these energies that are going to invite us to understand what love is differently. Love for self, love for each other, love for our lives and every moment that we live. And how is it that we can maximize the experience of love as we go along? Well, that is part of the task whose lessons will stay with us well after this Venus retrograde season is over. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys. And to prove it to you, here are some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everyone who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month with Choose Your Membership Rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University has some absolutely incredible programs coming up this March. This is the last call for Choose Your Tuition Rate as part of this upcoming season at Synchronicity University. And we've got some huge astrologers coming out who are going to be with us that I'm super excited about. And I know that it is just so special to be able to learn from them at this low a rate. I'm going to start with my own program, Between You and the World. This is all about travel and astrology. We're looking at relocation astrology. When is the best time to travel? Predicting travel, astrolocality, astrocartography, and so much more. Now, these are all techniques that I've been using myself for many years. I can't believe it took me this long to put together this program, but it is just such a natural fit. And I'll be traveling while I teach it, so that'll be a whole other layer of fun as well. So you can learn a lot more about this. Remember, you have just a few days left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from me the astrology of travel and you, between you and the world. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents the one and only Gemini Brett, superstar astrologer, world recognized astrologer. Gemini Brett is coming to Synchronicity University. And I'll tell you, this is the only place that he teaches at, and you will learn from Gemini at that low a rate, just $5 a class. And really, this is about making astrology education accessible to the masses, and he represents the absolute best of that, the pinnacle of that. And Gemini is renowned for bringing so much poetry and astronomy to his astrology. Well, Gemini is going to be teaching a whole class on houses, helping you to understand houses in astrology. Not nearly enough is presented on them or written about them. He and I had an amazing discussion about them as well, and you can check that out here on my YouTube channel. But this is a course that I'm certain is going to end up being such a special experience because of the insight, the wisdom, and just the real knowledge that Gemini has. This is an opportunity that really you do want to tap into at this time. And so, as we start this week, this is the last call. You've got just a few days left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from the one and only Gemini Brett. That is incredible. Thank you to him. And those links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents the one and only Ursula Stockder. Ursula is back, and this time she is speaking about the artist within and how to magnify creativity with astrology and understanding the symbols of astrology and so much more. And this is a 5-week journey that Ursula is going to take you on, and it does have to do with going through a process that helps you to connect with your own creative voice, regardless of your artistic medium. Now, Ursula is a Jungian analyst, and she is also an artist in addition to being an astrologer as well. And she is someone who has taught with us many times before, including previous programs on tarot and astrology and Jung and astrology. And Ursula has been kind enough to allow us to sell those packages to you again as an add-on for that very low price of just $5 a class. So you do want to check out our previous programs if you haven't already, but also this program in and of itself is such a special experience. I know so many people are going to enjoy it. I will say Ursula is part of my Mexican family. I lived in Mexico for about 10 years. It is mi casa de corazón. It's a home of the heart for me. And she was such an important part of that, especially the last couple of years when I was actually in Mexico City. And I'm really looking forward to spending quality time with her when I'm back in Mexico City in the middle of March. So I am so excited about that. But she is somebody who I have seen up close and personal just how good an astrologer she is, just how great readings she does, because I actually won a raffle with a reading with her, and it ended up being just so poetic, and it gave me this other perspective that I didn't even know I needed until she spoke it, and how much that reached me on a level of heart. And I know that she does the same for her students as well. And so check out Ursula's class. It's going to be a wonderful experience, especially if you've been an artist, you are an artist in any kind of medium. You want to learn about your more creative voice and how you can use it, how you can magnify it with astrology. Well, Ursula will guide the way for you with that. Just $5 a class. This is the last call. Links are in the description below, or head on over to synchronicityuniversity.com. Synchronicity University presents the March 2025 speaker series. It is last call to get in on this speaker series and look at these amazing teachers we have. Some you know, some are going to be brand new to you. All are going to provide you with new insights and understandings. So let's go through them. You know Attila as part of Zan's astrology. He's been on my channel so many times. I love his astrology. He regularly incorporates dwarf planets into his interpretations, and he's going to be doing an introductory class looking at dwarf planets at this time. So that's going to be super exciting to look forward to. How you can use the power of dwarf planets to know yourself better, to magnify your astro skills. Well, this is all part of what Attila is going to help you to explore. Scott Hogan, not necessarily an astrologer. In fact, we have two people who are not strictly astrology as part of this speaker series. And Scott is somebody that I love so much. He has beautiful energy. I met him very randomly. I was having lunch with a friend in a restaurant in downtown Toronto, and he just walked up to me and he said, "Nadiya Shah." And I said, "Hi," and I hugged him, and that was it. And I could see just what a brilliant soul he was. And he is really into what's called the cards of truth. And this is taking playing cards and using them to understand the day that you were born, what it says about you, how to know yourself more and know yourself better as well. And so, yeah, check out Scott's class. He's going to introduce you to the cards of truth and how to understand yourself with that, but also consider that Scott is going to help you to actually understand what day you were born, the planetary connections that the cards make as well. That's where the bit of astrology comes into the mix. Cynthia Rose is going to help you to utilize your personal planets to understand what's going on there. The personal planets really, they speak so personally to us, just like they sound. And she's going to help you to understand them with different nuance, and also to understand when important transits take place, how they help you to tap into their power and know yourself more. Yuridia Robles, one of my most favorite people on the planet, and one of the people I consider my personal astrologer. She's back at Synchronicity University. I love her so much. And Yuridia is going to teach on chart interpretation, helping you to understand the layers of interpretation that are there. You can look at a chart and you can interpret it from a lens of spirituality, from a lens of psychology, from a lens of predictive actual events, and so much more. So she's going to help you to understand how to actually look at an astrology chart depending on your intention. Now, Yuridia and I go way back. We met 10 years ago now, I think at least, which is super, super exciting. And Yuridia and I co-wrote a book together. It's her wisdom in Mayan astrology, but it is a book that we co-wrote. And it came about through many conversations I had with her. It's an introduction to understanding the Mayan cosmos. And it was just such a pleasure to work on that with her. So yeah, check out Yuridia. And now Kapil is somebody who I know personally because my Aunt Humera is a numerologist, and Kapil is a contemporary of hers, a fellow student, and her first teacher was his wife, Kapil's wife, who I'm trying to get to come to the school as well, because she's the numerology teacher, and they met, and now they have the same guru who teaches both of them as well. And Kapil wanted to teach a class. I'm super excited about this, an introduction to working with numerology. And he's bringing that strictly numerological perspective that only he can bring at synchronicityuniversity.com. So you see here, we've got lots of amazing speakers as part of the March 2024 speaker series. Last call for choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class to learn from these incredible speakers. Links are below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. Stay tuned, of course, for short horoscopes where I will go through a quick look at the Venus retrograde season for each sign, or rather just this turning of Venus, what the turning of Venus is going to mean for you, instead of looking at the whole season just yet. There will be special horoscopes that are going to be posted later on this week. I'm striving to do it just in time before the official retrograde takes place. It looks like it's on track for that. And of course, I'll talk about the Venus retrograde in the month ahead horoscopes for March. So be on the lookout for that as well later this week. And just thank you. Thank you so much for your trust. For this moment with you. I'm truly so grateful for it. The next time you see me, I'll be on the road. Universe willing, knock on wood, right? I'm super, super excited. It'll be great fun, and I'll take you along. So next week's YouTube video will likely be done not here, but rather somewhere else. And I'm looking forward to sharing that journey with you. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. Venus going retrograde just might be one of the big events of 2025 for a lot of us out there, but you can't take it at face value. That is because whatever happens during a retrograde, well, it tends to be seen differently once it is that Venus goes direct. Now, that direct is going to happen in the middle of April, and Venus is going to come back to where she is at the end of this week on March 1st, all the way in the middle of May. And at that time, we just might see developments that take place now very differently. Venus retrograde always asks us, do I love it? Is there love here? Is there love in this person, place, thing, or situation? It is now with Venus shifting directions that we feel that much more passion, that much more desire, that much more determination. And we can see that love is a force, a catalyst, if you will, of meaningful transformation in our lives and others. And this can be love in all kinds of forms. It is also prosperity. It is pleasure. It is joy. And yet all is not as it seems, because just when we think we have the answer, just when we think we know what love is, where we're going to get it, how we're going to get more of it, well, it is now that the game just might change. realize we're going for something else, something deeper, something more meaningful, or perhaps something lighter. This is an energy of extremes after all, but it is just the beginning of a time that is going to be characterized by hard truths, but also facing our own disappointments with ongoing connections to Saturn, to Neptune. But in the midst of all of that, we get these harmonious connections with Uranus and with Pluto, and that gives us insights into truth that ends up being consequential. But what we're going to do about it, where it takes us, that is just not going to be clear until the direct in the middle of April takes place. Because it's Venus, she's not only the goddess of love, she's also about how we connect to our own unique beauty, how we express it, our style choices. She has to do with what's pleasurable, what's fun. And to a certain extent, she's also about prosperity, how we celebrate it, how we magnify it, how we enjoy our prosperity. It tends to not be the best time to really go full on experimental with our looks. It is a great time to do a couple of things, which is affirm our own unique beauty, to play, to experiment in ways that aren't necessarily of great consequence. At the same time, though, you do want to be mindful of thinking that there's something that is the answer. She's also about how we connect to our own unique beauty, how we express it, our style choices. She has to do with what's pleasurable, what's fun. And to a certain extent, she's also about prosperity, how we celebrate it, how we magnify it, how we enjoy our prosperity as well. And what we feel is the way, is so sure, and this is what we've got to do, ends up maybe not being as satisfying, and certainly doesn't satisfy once it is that the official direct does take place. Now, how this Venus changing directions, Venus station retro is going to speak to you and your sign depends on your sun, moon, and rising sign. You want to take all three into consideration and then synthesize the information to make it unique to you. And of course, lots of horoscopes available online from me over at my YouTube channel, Nadiya Shah, in the superstar space at thefutureismagical.com. And before the official retrograde begins, there will be Venus retrograde special horoscopes available in the superstar space and for download on my website, nadiyashah.com. Aries, Venus standing still in the sky at the height of her power magnifies her importance for you that much more. It's like you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. Now, that could be literal or figurative, certainly could be romantic. So where it comes to your style, of all the signs out there, you are most likely to want to experiment. Be careful with doing anything that could have a long-term implication. Just pace yourself at this time with that, but enjoy yourself as well. That's going to be a priority to you. And of course, this is the goddess of love. So whether it's people from the past or a situation in the present, it's like it takes on greater importance for you. There's a whole lot more lust, a whole lot more passion. You can enjoy it, but know at the same time that you might not be seeing a current situation accurately. Things will look very different for you once we navigate forward and get into the middle of the spring. That is when we will have Venus direct, but then Venus re-entering your sign in May is when whatever's happening now, you just might see what was really going on. So pace yourself and enjoy yourself. Taurus, your ruling planet, going retro at the height of his power. Well, this is energy you are going to feel. It isn't just about what's happening in the sign before yours on levels of soul, psyche, spirit, which is where Venus is going to be so strong. But this is actually going to be an area of life where it's like you find yourself here. It is that much more important to you as well. So know that this can represent a huge moment, but this characteristic of this time is more about cleansing. It's about what leaves, what you no longer need. And it's about connecting to a faith that there is love in the world for you, that you have so much more yet to do in this lifetime. If you're willing, just willing to see, to understand from heart with eyes of love, you just might surprise yourself at the incredible visions you have now of your present, but also your future. Gemini, friendships, group endeavors, group dynamics, falling in love with your best friend. These are some possible scenarios, or through a best friend. Now, whatever happens in love, it's like we don't actually see it how it is. Things look really different once it is that Venus goes direct. So be careful if you're mixing love and friendship. But for all that, this can be a powerful time for wanting genuine heart level companionship and magnifying its importance in your life. This could also be when you're just having a whole lot more fun with people, with friends, with acquaintances, but just be mindful. Venus retrograde and Venus going retro magnifies overindulgence. And that can be something of not great consequence, but sometimes it can be a whole lot to ask and has long-term implications. So pace yourself at this time. Cancer, Venus goes retro at the top of your sky, having to do with respect, higher purpose, and it has to do with your career. So in a practical sense, you are asking yourself, is there love here in this career path that you've chosen, in the path that you feel aligns with your purpose or not? There might be a desire in some way to be seen differently in a larger sense, or be seen by more people. And this could have you making changes, particularly to the aesthetics of yourself. Just be mindful not to over experiment to the point where you're doing something really drastic that could have permanent implications, especially where it comes to you trying to secure a position of authority or visibility at this time. But for all that, where it comes to love with Venus retrograde season here, with a boss, because of a boss, through a boss, is the kind of energy we have here. So you really do want to be careful, because what looks simple on the surface could end up getting super duper complicated, especially in the month of April. That's when all kinds of secrets just come out. Nothing is going to be able to be contained as you might like. For all that, though, this can be a wonderful time to understand what it is to move in a direction of that higher calling, and to understand that your heart is leading the way to whatever that might be uniquely for you. Leo, long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, higher learning, legal matters. Venus is a blessing. You might feel a sense of blessing there, but remember, this is Venus going retro, which means all is not clear. I would be very careful about the international love, about connecting with people in faraway places right about now, because the lack of seeing the connection clearly is very strong. And there's something about not wanting to be honest with yourself, because you know what that might lead to, that can add to the messiness if you are not being vigilant with yourself. So pace yourself at this time. But for all that, you might just fall in love with a new philosophy, a new spirituality, or a new understanding of your own place in the world, feeling a sense of possibility there. And it's so wonderful to feel that wherever you are in your life and in the world, figuratively or literally, love in all its forms can find you. Virgo, truth, transformation, regeneration, desire, the taboo, power, and your understanding of wealth. So with this energy, I'm just going to say it. I'm seeing sugar daddy, sugar mommy kind of vibes here. Whether it is you're looking to secure one, whether it is you're hoping to be one, that's what we have here. And whatever you think it looks like now just might end up looking very different once we navigate a little further down the road. But for all that, we also have powerful energies that speak to your own desire to understand what previously might have been taboo to you, whether in intimacy or otherwise. Where it is that you have power, where you want power, why you want it, could come to the surface as well. But this is also about understanding authenticity and seeing the journey towards being more you with eyes of love is going to be part of the invitation of this moment. I would also invite you to be a little bit mindful about pulling out the credit card a little bit too quickly, because this to me says, like, just all over it, you might have access to a whole lot more credit or to a loan, but you may not be as connected to an awareness that that also means the bills got to get paid. And it happens to the best of us. As diligent as you are likely to be, you might want to amp up that diligence that much more. Libra, if anybody's going to experience this in the context of love, it certainly is you. Partnerships of all kinds are illuminated here. And the thing to remember is you may not be seeing a particular person or situation with a partner in your life clearly at this time. And that really is okay. If you are open to meeting new people, there's so much passion, desire, and attraction. And the likelihood of feeling like you've met someone where there's real long-term potential seems especially strong, but you are going to want to pace yourself at this time. And if it is that your own relationship has had moments of disagreement or you've had doubts as to whether or not you're with the right person for you, whatever might be happening now, is there love here is a really good question to ask. However, it's not the only question. However, the answers, they're not going to be there just yet. In fact, you might just have to wait until we get all the way to May to see whatever's happening now differently. So pace yourself, do what feels right for you to do in light of your unique circumstances, but allow yourself the grace to know that whatever's happening, whatever you might be feeling, you might come to see it differently once it is that we get there. Scorpio, your daily life, your office space, you see where I'm going with this. Office romances become that much more possible, but have the potential to become that much more messy as well. So just pace yourself at this time, but whatever's happening right about now in the office space and love and lust, just know we get to May. I know it sounds far away, but you and I both know you blink and we'll get there and it all comes out into the open. So pace yourself and know yourself. Having said that, though, this can be a powerful time for bringing a greater spirit of love as you move through your day-to-day life. Clients, customers, coworkers, attracting people that you were having as part of your work back in the day, they could just pop up now with even more opportunity and more prosperity. Bringing love to your healthcare habits and how well you take care of you just might be part of how it is that you are able to practice self-love and understand what that means for you that much more at this time. But for all that, I'm not normally this blunt. Be very careful with office romances. I just think it's not going to go the way that you think. For all that, though, if you are in an established bond, it becomes about actually seeing the evidence. What is your partner actually showing you about how much love is here? Now, whether it is that the two of you want to spend more time together in a very literal sense, incorporating each other into your day-to-day lives, or whether it is that there's a desire to merge the work that you do, what's a great idea right now might look really different once we navigate forward. So pace yourself and be yourself. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. Is there love here? You won't have the answer just yet, but the best place to ask that question is by looking at the evidence. Sagittarius, romance, flirtation, what the heart wants. You are getting your flirt on, and a flirtation could accelerate very quickly at this time. You are one of the signs that needs to be mindful that breakups that happen tend to not stay broken up under a Venus retrograde season, and that certainly is the case for you. Just when you think you know what it is, just when you think you know what you want to do, everything could look different very quickly. Now that works in terms of you staying or you going or you wanting or you starting. Flirtations can become so much more really quickly. Love bombing can happen under these vibrations. So again, just pace yourself and be yourself, knowing that more has yet to be revealed. Now, have fun. Be careful with gambling as well. You could very easily go overboard. Even the most restrained Sages out there, and that is such an oxymoron. How can a Sag be restrained? But yeah, even those of you who like to pride yourself on being able to be restrained, just might realize how little restraint you actually have in a given moment when you're rolling the dice or having some fun or taking a chance. You could go way overboard, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's more consequential. Capricorn, it is the foundations of your life. It is your past that are lit up with Venus station retro. And if anybody out there is going to connect love in the past, it certainly is you. Spontaneous, synchronistic, or planned, even conniving ways in which reconnections with people from the past can transpire here. In some cases, it'll feel downright uncomfortable. I'm sorry to say, but it does happen. In other cases, it might just feel like, oh, wow, I can't believe I didn't see this before. And oh my God, I'm so swept up with this person. And that's a thing that could happen as well. But just know whatever you think is happening in love right now could look very, very different, especially once we get to Venus direct in the middle of April, and especially when we get to May and Venus is back where Venus is right now. Having said all of that, I would also invite you to consider being careful about connecting with people, just living very close to where you are. Roommates becoming romantic as possible here. That's something you want to be careful with. But for all that, we have powerful energies here that speak to seeing your past with greater eyes of love and being able to recognize past patterns where they are unhealthy. Just seeing them means you're already on the track to changing them. Aquarius, online connections, you got to be careful with them right about now. What you think it is, what it actually is, what someone's telling you, what you want to believe, and the reality of what they're showing you. You may not recognize just how different they are. So pace yourself at this time, knowing that more is to be revealed, especially with people that are brand new or you're just getting to know. You might be that much more motivated with getting together with people that you meet online, and that's fine. The chances for connection is that much stronger, but the chance that you really don't know who you're dealing with are that much stronger as well. Falling in love with ideas, with how someone speaks to you, with what you are learning as part of your own journey, wanting to bring more love to your immediate environment, falling in love while you're traveling to short distance road trips. These are all some possible scenarios. And yeah, that could be romantic love, but it could be falling in love with a place, with a town. It could be experiencing a greater sense of self-love in these other places, in these other moments, in moments of brilliance, of intelligence that find you now. Pisces, love and self-love are intimately tied, but love and money, that's where things can get a little messy or complicated, or you think it's one way and it's really another way. So pace yourself at this time. If it is that you are meeting brand new people or you're just getting to know someone, a lesson might be about love and money, whether it works or whether it doesn't. However, if you're in an established bond, you might feel like you have to be more generous with your partner in some way, and you get to decide what it is that feels right for you to do. Looks like you have it to give. And this can be a time when you are feeling especially prosperous, but strive to be honest with yourself. I mean, this is just shopping going way overboard. If you're going to do it, enjoy it, but make sure there's a return policy there that you could work with as well. Because I just think of all the signs out there, who is most likely to buy stuff and then change your mind once Venus goes direct? It is likely going to be you. But remember, we're not in the most important phase of Venus retrograde just yet. That'll come a little bit later in April with Venus in your sign. Going direct is going to be a big moment. And whatever's happening now, you might see not just this, but see yourself differently once we get there. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.